Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're back with the famous Jimmy for another round. Of course, you know from last week, he's our developer advocate. He's got many titles, all titles of endearment. And we promised you last week, of course, that, not last week, earlier this week, we promised you, I think it was just Monday that we did the recording, Jimmy. We promised that we would talk about the merge. Jimmy has been super excited about this. He won't stop messaging me, and I'm also excited. I can't lie. I can't hold it back any longer. Today, we're going to talk about proof of work versus proof of stake. What the hell's the difference? The difficulty bombs. What is bombs and difficulty? What does that have to do with a merge? The Goerli and Sepolia test nets. And last but not least, what unconventional, unexpected, unknown opportunities does the merge offer to developers? That's it. Full stop. I'm sure Jimmy will throw in a few extra little tidbits for us. But Jimmy, thanks for coming on again. Can we start by differentiating between proof of work, proof of stake, and which one's better?
Actually, this is two consensus mechanism. We can call it algorithm for the blockchain. So I would say there's no better way, or there's no better algorithm compared to the two, but they work in different ways. So I think the merge is the most important event this year, probably in the ecosystem. So the merge is trying to move the proof of work into the proof of stake to reduce the energy. The blockchain is very famous for its high energy consumption, and is really not environment friendly enough. And so the merge will transfer the proof of work to the proof of staking. And the miners will going to stake their coins to be the validator. So by talking about a validator is quite a different concept as compared with the proof of work. So you have to stake your coins to be a validator to continue work in the new network, in the new Ethereum network. So this is what we're having very soon. And I read in an article today, actually, the latest testing on the testnet was successful. So that means in the Sepolia network, the community just did a testing, and the next step will be merge the Goerli again to verify all the processes to be ready to the merge.
Right. Okay. Because I think we've done Robson already, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we've just done Sepolia, and coming up soon is Goerli, and then the last step is mainnet, right?
Yeah, the last step is the mainnet. Yes, but the mainnet timeline is not confirmed yet.
Right. That's the biggest. That's the biggest concern, right? Because it's like, sort of switching planes mid-flight. It's not a easy task, right?
Yeah, you can just think is replace the engine while the plane is flying.
Right.
It's very difficult.
You wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, of course. But we have to do it because, a lot of changes will make our, ecosystem more reliable and more, have better, performance, as well as have a better work mechanism.
Very cool. Yeah. So let me see if I can split the difference, if I can describe the two and what's going to be different here from a non-technical perspective. So I have enough friends that are mining that I think I understand proof of work pretty well. So essentially, the way I understand proof of work is there's a problem that has to be solved, a math equation essentially that has to be solved.
Yeah.
And when that is solved, there's a reward for that. And that why does that equation need to take place? Well, that equation needs to be solved in order to validate, I suppose, transactions, right? So if I want to send someone $1 through my bank account, there's no outside party validates that. The bank goes, hey, yeah, Walter's got $1. And then Jimmy's bank goes, okay, cool. I'll take Walter's $1. Simple as that. But we're relying on these two banks who have the ability to censor our money, and they have the ability to, they could take our money for no reason. Not that that is something
Hmm.
we should be concerned about in most countries, but there's things that people don't like. There's not as much freedom. It's not as easy to transfer. So we created this great thing called Ethereum. Now, proof of work essentially does the exact same thing, but what it does is two people, well, a person who has a very fancy computer, let's say a very high powered computer, attempts to
Very
solve
powerful computer. Yeah.
exactly, attempts to solve the problem, attempts to solve this math problem with an algorithm. And if they're successful, they're rewarded. They're rewarded in ETH, and the transaction is then processed. So my 1 ETH goes from me to Jimmy without any, I don't know what the word is. Any
Centralized.
thank you,
Yeah.
and any
Yeah.
centralized body having to interfere. It takes place entirely within the network, and that's great. Now, proof of work is very similar. It's still completely decentralized. There's no outside body that needs to participate. But the difference is, rather than having this incredibly complex math equation that needs to be solved by super high powered computers, there's another method for validating the transactions. Jimmy, could you tell us a little bit about what's different about the way that proof of stake is going to validate these transactions? How is it going to reduce the energy cost?
Actually, in the proof of stake, there is a proposer. So every time there is a blockchain changes, we can call it a transaction. So the proposer, first, they will propose a block. And the consensus client will process the block and send to the execution client. It's kind of the execution client can assemble the block and verify the preconditions and execute the transactions and verify afterwards to verify where everything's fine, and the consensus client will validate. So it's kind of the proposer to propose a new change, and the consensus client is and the execution client work together to get everything done to validate the changes, whether they are doing in the good way, in the right way. So it's not anymore to solve a mathematical hard problems rather than to do the verification. So that is why we call it validator. It's different from the proof of work.
Okay, so I think we're getting there. We know there's a proposer, there's there's the execution client, and there's the consensus client. I think that's
Yeah.
for a lot of people, they completely understand that, especially a lot of the developers. But maybe there's someone who's listening that's pretty new. Maybe we can just talk just a little bit more about how exactly is the transaction verified, right? Previously, it was this math equation. What is actually taking place now to ensure that the transaction is legitimate?
I think the verification part is very similar to the proof of work. It's just verify if the transaction content by the hashing code and to see the block information is correct or not. So this part is now changed, but in the proof of work, you have to solve a very complex, the mathematical puzzle to make sure your work is correct. But in the proof of stake, only the validators can do that, because you have to stake your tokens to be a validator, and only validators can do that work.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the staking and why that's important, please, Jimmy. So why in order is so that you've explained it very well, I think. In this new proof of stake, there's a few different components. There's a proposer, there's execution client, there's the consensus client. Why do the people that process the transactions, that validate the transaction, why do they need to stake an ETH? They need to have a minimum of 32 ETH staked, locked up, essentially. Why is that?
This is a great question. Actually, it is the mechanism, the Ethereum organization, to guarantee that only the verified validators can do the work. So that is the reason why we can reduce actually remove the very hard mathematical puzzle to be the manner to reach a consensus. That's the way why we want to do it.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons that you have those tokens locked up is if you lie or if you make a mistake, you get some of those tokens taken away. So for example, in this new system, in the new proof of stake system, we're leaving it up to the validator to tell us if the transaction is true or not, right? So what could happen in theory is the validator could lie and say, this transaction is correct when it's not, but there's a penalty for that. And the penalty is called slashing, if I'm not mistaken. And that's
exactly,
going to damage their staked ether. So essentially
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing here, we're forcing them to lock up the coins. And then if they tell a lie or they do something incorrectly, they're going to lose some of their ETH. So it's not financially viable to lie. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Okay. So essentially you got to lock some money up. If you tell a lie, you lose the money. If you tell the truth, you're going to be rewarded very handsomely.
Yep.
With the validator will be rewarded directly.
Maybe not very handsomely.
I think it's quite handsomely. I mean, people are saying 10%, roughly 10% on staked ETH. That's amazing. If I put my money in the bank right now, I might get 1%.
Yeah. Compared with the bank, it's handsome. Yeah.
I think it's amazing. It's 8 times more than the bank. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit too excited about it, but let's move on.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we could talk about each one of these points forever. Let's move on. What is a difficulty bomb, Jimmy?
Actually, the difficulty bomb is the mechanism that make the actually it's a measure to disincentive the ether mining operations from keeping their doing anymore, because we are trying to move from the proof of work to the proof of stake. So we can increase the block time. For example, at this moment, the averaging the time is the 13 seconds. Maybe it will take longer time for the miners to get a new block created. So in the coming months, maybe 16 or 18 seconds, maybe in the July very soon. So it will be very painful for the network users. That is a reduced incentive to make the miner avoid doing the mining again. So to migrate to the proof of stake new mechanism.
Right. Okay. So essentially what we've done is to disincentivize mining or to incentivize the move to proof of stake, we've actually made that math equation we were talking about more difficult. So it's harder for these computers to process it. Even the really high speed, really powerful computers, it's made it harder for them to process it. Therefore, they're using more energy per block. Therefore, it becomes less profitable.
Yeah, make them less profitable, and by increasing the complexity of the math algorithm to make to make the miner unprofitable. Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. Okay, next one is the Goerli or Sepolia test nets. What is the difference between the two? Is there a difference?
Yeah. Sepolia is kind of the testnet to allow the Ethereum community to do their merging testing. So at the beginning, I mentioned that they just finished their merging in the Sepolia. At this moment, in the next step, they're going to do the merging. Goerli. But the Goerli is more useful for the developers to test their distributed applications, to test the dApps. So it's more developer focused. One is the community of the Ethereum to test the merge.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so the Goerli testnet is mainly used by people creating dApps. So things like Aave Compound, just about everything we're interacting with a wallet on the Ethereum network. That's what the users are used to interacting with, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So that's the reason why we support the Goerli first.
Tell me about
as
that.
NodeReal.
So me and Jimmy obviously are both working for NodeReal, and we had a meeting the other day, and we were talking about the first network being supported is the Goerli network. Can you tell me?
Yes.
Is that the reason? Is it as simple as that? It's because most of our partners and our customers are creating dApps and we need to support them.
Yeah, exactly. So we recommend users, actually the app developers, to use Goerli first
Okay,
to test, actually as soon as possible to test their applications. So
great.
that's the reason why we want to support that first.
And when is the Goerli network going to be available with NodeReal?
I think this week, it will be online this week.
Very cool. Okay, great. So, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe Monday, people can go online, go onto their NodeReal account, connect, and start testing.
Yeah, exactly. So they
Brilliant.
can create, on NodeReal portal, they can create apps and select the testnet, and you can select the Goerli to get your API keys and URLs to start your work.
Super cool. Okay, I'm excited. I've been playing around with our DApps, our mega node to like put it to the test, so to speak, right? Ben and yourself
Yep.
and Henry and all the team is super passionate about the speed and the consistency and so on and so forth. So, but I want to see for
Yep.
myself. I'm sort of a hands-on person. So I went and created a GitHub. I didn't have a GitHub before, unsurprisingly. I'm non-technical. I went and created a GitHub. I got hooked up, and it's pretty cool, actually. I was pretty impressed. I tested what's the most complex API, the most complex basic API that we offer, right at the bottom of the list. What's it called again?
The most complex one?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
mean the debug API?
I don't think it was debug, but it was another one, and it was true. I think Ben said it would take about 16 milliseconds to process, and it was right. It took about 16 milliseconds to process. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's about 4 or 5 times faster than the industry standard. Is that right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about the speed of this?
Yeah, actually, we did several stress tests according to our performance benchmark, and we found that the average response time of NodeReal is much lower than our than industry standard. So I can share the data on our portal, so you can check out the data by yourself and compare with our competitors and other node services.
Cool. Okay. And tell me, it's fast, which is amazing. I think it's pretty easy to use. We
Yep.
sort of talked about that last week. What sort of new opportunities is this going to offer developers? Not of course, NodeReal offers developers a lot of great opportunities. We're happy to connect and provide free mega nodes in the beginning. But
Mhm.
what sort of opportunities are offered to developers by this merge, by a change of technology?
So actually, the merge is not directly related to the developers, so they can still use an Ethereum as they did before.
Yep.
But the merge can have a better Ethereum ecosystem. That means after the merge, as you say, there will be a sharding. A sharding means it can have more traffic and improve the network congestion and have a better. It is more environment friendly. So that's the purpose of merge. But for the developers, they can. I think my recommendation is that you can just start your testing as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So because it's getting faster, because it's going to be less expensive to process transactions, what sort of opportunities do you think will appear that didn't exist before? I think Ethereum previously was limited by the cost, by the speed, right? For example, people said, well, you could never use Ethereum as a true payment system because if you go to a store and you got to wait 13 seconds to buy a cake, well, that's a long time, actually, if you think about it, right? If you pay with a Visa, it takes like a fraction of a second. I'm sure if you pay with WeChat Pay, it takes a fraction of a second, right? Whereas ETH, like 10 or 13 seconds, that's a long time. Maybe that's not the best use case going forward. Maybe there's some other interesting use cases that pop up because of the decreased cost and increased speed. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, of course. I think the metaverse is on trend, right? So we have a better Ethereum network. That means we can have more traffic, we can have more use cases. So that means that sometimes previously some business cannot be moved to the network. Now we have more chance to move the business on network. So that means in the future we can see a lot of different things like the NFT or like the payments, like gaming, the DeFi. the GameFi will be available to the end users, and your business will have more open world. Because you have a bigger platform, you have a bigger chance to move your business, right? So a lot of new business pattern will emerge because we're still in the beginning of the blockchain era. So a lot of new opportunities or possibilities will emerge from the market. So it's really difficult to predict what will happen, but we have more chance. We have more opportunities.
Hey, if anyone has any predictions, please let me know so I can make an
Yeah,
investment early before anyone else. I want to know that.
yeah.
I want to know the
I hope
secrets.
so. Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
we're pretty well done for today. Maybe we need a part 2 coming up in the future. I'm not sure. We just want to touch on a few short points that we're excited about coming up to the merge. Friday, sometime near the end of this week, it's Thursday now, tomorrow, maybe on the weekend, we're going to be going live. NodeReal is going to be going live on the Gurley testnet for everyone to be able to start testing their dApps. Jimmy recommends you start testing right now. Don't wait. But before we go, is there anything that you are hoping to mention before we sign off today, Jimmy, that I didn't already mention? Cool, Jimmy. I think that's enough for today. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 later. If you're looking for more information on the merge, if you have some more topics that you wish we spoke about that we didn't bring up today, please leave us some comments, jump into Discord, jump in Twitter, let us know. What do you want to hear us talk about next? We've got a few podcasts scheduled for next week, but as Jimmy mentioned on the previous podcast, we love your feedback. We want to get as much feedback as possible. We're early on this journey with you guys, and we want to build this with your questions, with your feedback, with your complaints. We're happy to listen to them all. But Jimmy, thanks very much for coming on. I'm excited for the next one. Hopefully we can get together again on Monday next week to talk about maybe Polygon. I know Polygon's coming out soon on NodeReal.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get the guys to let us talk about that. What do you think?
Yeah, that would be very fantastic.
Cool, Jimmy. All right. Well, thanks very much.